I don't know if she just had a traumatic experience with a liberal or if this is all a bit that she is really committed to.
This is a terrible execution of what is probably the only strategy for Mr. Crudité. Welcome to Political Experts React, where we break down political ads in media, explain what the people behind them are trying to accomplish, and decide whether or not they did a good job. I'm Dan Pfeiffer, former communications director for Barack Obama, and joining me today is Tim Miller, a former Republican strategist and author of the new book, Why We Did It. Tim Miller, welcome to Political Experts React. How you doing, buddy?
Hey man, I'm really good. I'm happy to be here. Let's do it.
You're really swerving from your persona as Bay Area resistance hero with a LSU hat on right now.
Well, I got to remind people, I still got some Red State love. I still got some Red State street cred.
All right. Anywho, the reason I wanted you to have it on the show is because, one, everyone should read your amazing book, Why We Did It. But also, you have spent a lot of time studying how people justify working for MAGA Republicans, the post-Trump Republican mentality. And so I want to help analyze these ads through that perspective. The first ad we're going to watch is from Kari Lake, the Republican candidate for Arizona governor.
Arizona is under attack. I'm Kari Lake. As governor, I will issue a declaration of invasion, finish President Trump's wall, blow up the cartel's drug tunnels and surveillance drones, and deploy the Arizona National Guard to stop illegals from entry. Arizona is our home, and I will do everything in my power to defend our families.
Endorsed by President Trump, Kari Lake for governor.
Two questions for you. One, what do you think of this very subtle, nuanced approach to the complex issue of immigration? And two, can you tell me what a declaration of invasion is?
Okay, I'm going to do the thing I teach people in media training and answer the question I wish you would have asked rather than the question you did ask, because I don't have a good answer to either of those questions. I'm glad you brought me on for my expertise, which is really more in dealing with how the people who know better go along with Trumpism. And in this primary in Arizona, right, the Team Normal had a candidate, right? It was Karen Taylor Robeson, who ran against Lake. Pence came and campaigned against her, failed, which shows you where the Republican Party really is. Kari Lake is a much weirder nut to crack. Kari Lake was like the mom who shows up to drag brunch and, has a couple too many margaritas, wants to make the gays all her best friend. And she was a local TV host. And she was a liberal elite and changed on a dime. So her psychology is hard for me to wrap my head around. I don't know if she just had a traumatic experience with a liberal or if this is all a bit that she is really committed to. I watch Steve Bannon's podcast about once a week to keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening out there. And she was on recently. She was talking about how Arizona has a surplus and she's going to use the surplus funds to drone the border. And I was like, this is insane. But that is her whole game here. Really going full MAGA, going all in on the conspiracy. Maybe she thinks she can do what Trump did in 2016 for Arizona and juice the turnout of this disaffected white working class and, maybe in certain places Latino working class voter enough. And that's the path forward. She's not a typical former Republican doing the fake MAGA shtick.
Yeah, I'm very curious about her. I do think that she is a talented media personality. I watched a video that a lot of Democrats laughed at where she talked about both Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump's BDE. She's like an entertainer. That's the part of Trump that she has matched. Ron DeSantis has matched Trump, to your point, in a different way. There's nothing entertaining about Ron DeSantis. He is just authoritarian wallpaper drawing. But she has charisma, which allows you to sand the edges down of some of the harsher rhetoric. I think that this ad, which was run in the primary, could have some backlash effects in the general. But I think she is someone that Democrats should not dismiss right off the bat because I think she has some skills that she could use to pivot in the general. The next ad we're going to watch is an attack ad against Arizona Democratic Senator Mark Kelly from a Republican political group.
Love. It makes us do crazy things. And Mark Kelly's been weak in the knees since Joe Biden's been in office. Kelly's voted with Biden 97% of the time. Open borders, $1,400 stimulus checks for felons, crippled domestic oil production. Through every Biden misstep and disaster, Mark Kelly has said, yes, dear, it's love. Don't be blinded like Mark Kelly. The NRSC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
You suggested this ad, so I want to get your take on why you suggested it and what do you think it tells us about the political environment and Republican strategy?
A little light homophobia there. That's not why I suggested it. But when I suggested it, I don't think I even noticed the kind of like almost limpish wrist that fake Mark Kelly had there. Subtle move there. But I brought this up because if you want to talk about, okay, how are these Republican voters, how are they justifying going along with this anti-democratic party, right? And what are the ways for Republican candidates, Masters in this case has some really crazy positions. What are the ways for like a Blake Masters to appeal to your McCain Flake Republicans, which are key in a place like Arizona? And this is, I think, the interesting play. Biden's numbers are about 10 points lower than most Democrats, right? So Republicans are trying to bring these folks down to Biden's level. And that is how they win, by making this a campaign about Joe Biden and about people's complaints with the state of the economy and their lives right now in this kind of annoying economic time, and push those complaints against Joe Biden and make this election be about that. So these are the people they're trying to reach here. Somebody that doesn't like Trump, doesn't like Biden, doesn't like Masters, get them to vote for Masters because they're going to tie Kelly to Biden. That's the strategy. And obviously the Democratic counter strategy is going to be like, no, this campaign is not about that. It's about Blake Masters being an insane insurrectionist who doesn't want to let you get an abortion after 1 week. Who wins over those voters that don't really like either option is going to play an important role in Arizona and a couple other places.
What happens at the end of this election will be determined about whether Republicans can make it a referendum on the cost of gas and groceries, and Democrats can make it on a referendum on Republican extremism, MAGA extremism, ultra MAGA, whatever sort of term you want to use. And my guess is Senate Democrats are going to have much more success moving it to a referendum on Republican extremism than House candidates, in part because the Republicans have nominated a bunch of really ripe targets in Blake Masters and Herschel Walker and Dr. Oz, who we'll talk about in a second, who is a ripe target in a different sort of way. I do wonder about whether in this era of negative partisanship, Biden's numbers, we're looking at them a little bit the wrong way, because his numbers with independents are problematic for sure, but what is pushing him below the Trump line is he's actually pretty soft with Democrats. And that's a lot of the gap you see between Warnock and Biden, or Kelly and Biden. And are those people, A, are they going to vote? And B, are they going to vote just for a Democrat, whether they're sort of ambivalent about the Biden presidency? And so that's sort of the soft underbelly of that strategy is, can you make particularly a statewide race really be about Joe Biden?
Yeah, I think that's right. France is actually the best analogy of this that I have right now. Macron's numbers were so low, right? And Le Pen, ends up just being so unacceptable. Can that work for Democrats in the midterms? I think it's possible just because of the nature of the Republicans on the ballot.
Look, the internet is awash in content. There are a million things happening at any one time. I walked around on this planet for 5 months without having any idea that Dr. Oz had filmed this absurd crudité video. Just pure ignorance. So if you want to avoid missing great content, great Democratic ads, ridiculous Republican ads, then you have to subscribe to this channel. You have to, say with me now, smash the subscribe button. Don't do it for me, do it for you. The next ad we're going to watch is an attack ad from Dr. Oz against John Fetterman in the Pennsylvania Senate race.
Now that John Fetterman claims to be recovering, let's pull back his hoodie and examine what's in his head. Looks like he has some screws loose. What's this? Fetterman wants to release 1/3 of all prisoners. That's crazy! Spend more tax dollars, everything will cost more. That's nuts. Slow energy production, gas prices will skyrocket. That's ridiculous. Socialized medicine? Where do you get these crazy ideas? Now it makes sense. Better close it up. John Fetterman is crazier than you think.
This ad is what goes for clever among the decrepit group of political ad consultants who have been making television ads for the last 30 years. But what do you think of the ad?
That's a bad ad. I don't think any money was put behind that ad. I think this is a crazy, kind of social media thing / consultant driven thing / whatever. I mean, the bong is like ridiculous, right? It's like a bong comes out of his being pro legalization of pot is like one of the best things Fetterman has going for him.
I just looked at the polling on this, and it's 47% of Republicans nationwide support legalizing marijuana for recreational and medical use. So it's like, I'm not really sure who your audience is with that, but
It's an old white guy who did this ad, and he's like, ooh, a bong. And you can just imagine this person. So I don't think that's going to work at all. And I think it's extremely mockable, and I think Dr. Oz's campaign is flailing, obviously. This whole notion that Fetterman is like a Bernie whatever, not only do I think that is not going to work, I think it might hurt them, because there is still that like Bernie Trump overlap on the other side of the horseshoe. We were talking about the McCain Flake voters a minute ago, the Bernie Trump voters. So Fetterman is playing to that crowd in a lot of ways. So I don't think that helps. The criminal justice stuff that comes out in like kind of the middle of the ad, like you can imagine somebody writing a better ad with some of the material that was in the middle that might dent Fetterman's momentum a little bit. But right now that was just...
Yeah, it is throwing everything against the wall to see what'll stick. I agree that the only thing in there that would give me some pause is just crime messaging, right? Republicans are very good at using it. Fetterman's lead in this race thus far, if we are to believe polls, which we never do, comes from doing much better than a typical Democrat because he has this working class rural outsider appeal that I think is very effective. If he wins this race, he will be a star in the Democratic Party in about 3 seconds.
Yeah, I just, with Oz, who is like so weird, he's like wearing the tucked in shirt into dress pants, can't understand how to buy a veggie tray. I just don't think that the weirding of Fetterman is going to work. And I don't know if Oz has the stomach for this because I think he wants to still be a mainstream TV star after all this. If he loses, I think the only way to go at the suburban voters is just hardcore crime and race baiting, frankly, message against him. And you could see a hint of that in the middle of the ad.
Yeah, and like no one who is undecided in this race can recognize a animated rendition of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in an ad. Like it is just, you have full Twitter brain if you think that's going to be an effective piece of content. All right, Tim Miller, thank you so much for joining us on Political Experts React. And everyone go buy Tim's amazing book, Why We Did It.
I'm honored to be an expert.
Thanks for watching these ads and videos with us. If you have anything you'd like us to break down, please let us know in the comments. See you all next time.